In a little village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling lake lived a young man named Rony. Now, Rony wasn't just any young man. Oh no, he was the undisputed master of being lazy. While other youngsters his age were out working in the fields or tending to their family's farm, Rony could be found lounging around their tiny hut, dreaming up new and inventive ways to shirk his responsibilities. Rony lived with his parents and younger sister in a small hut at the edge of the village. His father, a hard-working farmer, toiled day in and day out to provide for his family. Rony, being the eldest son, was expected to lend a hand, but more often than not, he preferred to sit back, letting his father do all the heavy lifting. "A little rest never hurt anyone," he'd say with a lazy grin, even as his father grew weary under the weight of doing both their jobs. One day, a terrible fever swept through the village. Many were too weak to leave their beds, and even the strongest farmers could only watch in despair as their crops withered in the fields. Among the sick was Rony's father. Day by day, he grew weaker, his coughs rattling his thin frame, his skin clammy and hot to the touch. Rony's mother, a woman with eyes as deep and dark as the soil they farmed, paced the dirt floor, her face creased with worry. It fell upon Rony to take care of his father. But what did he know of such duties? He tried his best, fetching water from the well and chopping wood for the fire, but those were tasks that usually took less than a minute for his father to complete. And Rony, with his gangly limbs and lack of coordination, struggled with each one. Still, it was something. It was effort born out of necessity rather than love. As the days passed and his father's condition showed no signs of improvement, Rony knew he had to do more. But what more could he do? That's when an idea struck him. It wasn't exactly a brilliant idea, nor one filled with hope. It was, in fact, another scheme to shirk his responsibilities. He went to the village elder and told him that since their family farm was sick, they wouldn't be able to pay the annual tax to the kingdom this year. In exchange for this service, he requested a sack of grain from the communal store. The elder, a kind man despite his advanced age, agreed, not realizing that Rony's ploy was merely a clever way to get out of helping his father. Back home, Rony told his mother he'd secured a sack of grain from the elder, just enough to last them a few weeks. With that, he hoped to buy some time until his father recovered. However, his father grew steadily worse, his breaths shallow and raspy. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Rony's father opened his eyes one last time. He looked at his wife and son, his gaze lingering on Rony for a moment longer than the others. Then his eyes fluttered closed and he breathed his last breath. Rony's mother screamed, a sound so full of grief it tore through the stillness of the evening. She collapsed beside her husband's body, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Rony stood there, frozen, the weight of his actions crashing down on him like a tidal wave. It was his fault his father was lying there cold and still. It was his laziness that had driven his father to his grave. In the days that followed, the weight of his guilt pressed heavily on Rony's heart. But guilt, like a stone lodged in one's gut, doesn't last forever. It dulls with time, even as the pain of its memory lingers. Slowly, the bustling rhythm of life began to weave its way back into the fabric of the village. People went back to their routines, the laughter of children echoing once again in the streets. But for Rony, life had changed. His father's death had left a gaping hole in his soul, a constant ache that echoed the hollow space in their hut. Then one day, as Rony listlessly walked through the village, he heard a commotion. People were gathered in front of the village square, their voices rising and falling in excited murmurs. Curiosity piqued. He pushed through the crowd to see what had brought everyone together. And there, standing on a makeshift stage, was the mayor. His face was etched with lines of authority and power. "My fellow villagers," he boomed, his voice echoing through the square. "We have all suffered much in the past month. Our crops failed, our livestock perished. But now, the rains have returned and our fields are greening once more. To celebrate this, we shall hold a competition. Whoever wins will receive a box of gold, enough to ensure their family's prosperity. As the mayor spoke, Rony's mind raced. A box of gold, enough to lift his family out of their poverty. But what did he, a notorious slacker, know about competitions? Just then, he caught his mother's eye. She was staring at him, her gaze intense and unwavering. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Rony saw the silent plea in his mother's eyes. This was his chance to make things right, to honor his father's memory. With newfound determination, Rony stepped forward and declared, "I shall compete." The villagers gasped. Some snickered, some shook their heads in disbelief. But Rony paid them no heed. This was his chance to redeem himself, to prove that beneath his reputation as a lazy good-for-nothing, there was a capable young man ready to rise to the challenge. The competition was fierce. Young men, their muscles rippling beneath their tanned skin, flexed their strength trying to lift heavy stones and uproot massive trees. Agile girls with lithe figures danced atop tall poles, their laughter ringing with carefree joy. Musicians with calloused fingers plucked their instruments, filling the air with lively tunes. And storytellers with voices like honeyed wine held the audience spellbound with tales of daring adventure and mythical lore. Meanwhile, Rony stood by the edge of the clearing, his heart pounding against his ribs. He wasn't strong, nor could he dance or play an instrument. What could he possibly do? Then he remembered a skill he'd honed during his many hours of idling around the village, his sharp eye and quick wit. He decided to enter the riddles contest. The crowd gathered close, their faces a mixture of amusement and skepticism. One by one, the contestants stepped forward, their voices echoing with confidence. They posed riddles, some simple, some complex, and the crowd cheered, laughed, and gasped at the clever solutions. When it was Rony's turn, a hush fell over the crowd. They leaned in, their gazes fixed on him. Taking a deep breath, Rony began. "I have cities, but no houses. I have mountains, but no trees. I have water, but no fish. What am I?" A puzzled frown creased the villagers' foreheads. They whispered among themselves, throwing out guesses. But before anyone could answer, Rony continued. "I have roads, but no cars. I have fields, but no crops. I have a mouth, but cannot speak. What am I?" The silence stretched, taut and heavy. Then a young girl piped up, "A map!" Rony smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in months. Indeed, it is a map. The crowd erupted into cheers. They had been tricked by Rony's clever wordplay. Their champion was indeed the most unlikely of them all. Later that day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Rony stood on the stage, a box of gold at his feet. Around him, the crowd roared, their voices hoarse from cheering. He had done it. He'd won, not with brute strength or natural talent, but with his quick wit and sharp eye. That night, as Rony and his mother sat in their hut, the box of gold heavy between them, he knew he'd finally done something right, something to honor his father's memory. He didn't just win a competition that day, he won back his self-respect, and in doing so, began to heal the wound in his heart. From that day forward, Rony was known throughout the village not as the lazy good-for-nothing, but as Rony the Quick, the boy who outsmarted the villagers with his clever riddles. And though he never forgot his father, the ache in his heart slowly faded, replaced by the pride of a job well done and the love of a grateful family.